We wanted to talk about the issue of integrating traditions and what's called syncretism a little bit as well.
Yes, yeah. So basically, syncretism is the norm. And also, historically speaking, like, yes. And I'll joke and I'll tell people, you show me a pure tradition, and I'll show you something that at least 1,000 years ago was syncretized. And like that is what it is. And it's not until like relatively recently in human history that like questions of syncretism and keeping things authentic became very important, and a lot of times that comes it's like rooted in fear. But historically speaking, like I think the oldest ones that like a tradition that is worried about syncretism and talks about syncretism is Catholicism, because they're, for them it's like you're either doing this in Christianity, you're doing it this way, or you're a pagan,
Which is
and
a tool of empire.
it is a tool of empire, and it's a tool. I mean, like anything that's kind of obsessed with like purism and purity is definitely
Empire.
suspect.
Colonizing.
Yes, again, leading into fascism, and there's a whole political thing that you could do talking about that. But especially Western esoteric traditions, a lot of Taoist lineages. There's lots of different techniques and approaches that they are drawing from, and there is more of an excitement about what new things you can learn from other approaches than there is some sense of like maintaining your pure tradition. And so syncretism is the norm, essentially. And you just find techniques that work.
So
That's basically
we're
it.
to talk a little bit about, Hermeticism is incredibly syncretized.
Yeah. The Western esoteric tradition was birthed from a bunch of Arabs, Greeks, Romans, Egyptians, Persians, and Jews all living in Alexandria together sharing notes. And like that's the foundation.
But even before that, those traditions were already ripping off of each other.
Yes, there's so much conversation
Their
that
names
was
of
happening.
God, yeah.
Yeah, so this overlap between the names of God, even conversations that were happening between people in Greece and people in India as late as like the 8th century BC. And the fact that all of the
So yoga
yoga
is already influenced by the Greeks.
by the Greeks, and likewise ancient practices in India influenced the West too. There's references in the Picatrix, which is a seminal text of Western magic, to the way that ancient Indians were practicing. There's always conversation, and so don't think of syncretism as like a bad thing. You find ways and methods that work, and more than often than not, like complete practices from culture to culture to culture, again, have more in common than they do like different, because the technologies are the technologies.
When the culture finds something that works, they use it.
They use it. Yeah.
It's just like it's genetic evolution.
Yeah, it's a different question if a particular culture is saying we don't want you to use our practices. Then don't do it. That's fine. But that's a different thing, and it's a new phenomenon, relatively speaking.
And a Greek wouldn't practice something from India and then say they're an Indian.
That too. They didn't,
right? Like it doesn't change like that. There's a difference between like cultural identity.
Yeah.
Right, and like claiming authority and humans are humans.
Yeah.
Dionysus, or or Christ, right? The having to undergo that process of death, and sometimes dismemberment, being involved. That it's like that is a very that it's a very real initiation that we're familiar with, but that so few of us are taught the steps, right? Like so few of us get to sit at the feet of an elder and learn what it takes, or what it looks like, right? Because we're not, I feel like we're not taught, like even those of us who are familiar with those stories, it's like we're not taught how to do it, right? Because do you know what I'm saying?
Right. And because part of it is theoretical until you're in it.
Oh yeah.
Part of it is theoretical. They're stories, and they're guiding stories. Myths always they point the way, and there's always a truth in them. But on one level, they're theoretical until those gods get a hold of you, reach in and start turning things upside down and inside out and pulling things out. Yeah. I can talk about it and I can write about it, and it will be helpful to know. It's always helpful. It's why keeping books of writers that I love who've gone through these things help in difficult times. I'll sit in the library and I'll pull, read Robert Bly, or I'll read Stephen's works, or Goethe. To know others have gone this way, they're extremely helpful and very, very important to have those books and have those stories and have these conversations, so we don't feel so bloody alone in it. So we can feel somehow companioned. And that's very, very important as our culture becomes, and our society becomes more and more isolated from another. But telling stories, and that's the glue that holds us together, and the riches that we leave, that's part of our inheritance, is to leave these stories for others to find their breadcrumbs in the dark forest.
So
All right, we're coming up on time now. Is there anything else that you would like our audience to know about grief and this process, dealing with the God of grief, God that is grief?
Yeah. Trust is a big word that I keep seeing right now in response to that question. Trusting yourself, trusting, this God is ancient. It's been around and it's not going anywhere, and we can't avoid it. We have all kinds of ways to minimize it and to move through quickly, but it's one of the most loving things you can do for yourself and as part of your inheritance and your legacy, is to be a student and trust this process, as excruciating, terrifying, uncomfortable and discomforting as it is. I promise you, on the other side, there's something else, something new, something you couldn't have expected or created without it.
thank you so much. Oh, go ahead.
And trust your feelings. Trust your feelings. Your body cannot lie. It is your ally.
So thank you so much, Julie. And just want to let everybody know Julie does have a newsletter and has, I believe, several books in the works coming out, but one that you can order now, which is about the intelligence of the heart. And we'll have links to that there are links to that in the description of this podcast, and letting you know this is part one with Julie. Would love to, if you would like, Julie, to have you back to talk more maybe about practices for helping people to feel and kind of live from that heart-centered space, which about very well, and that I think will assist many people in being able to have that strength and have that capacity to sit with not only grief, but with finding your sacred oak to go sit under, right? Finding your spirits, your ancestors, your guides, who are going to help you move through life with more ease, and honestly with more humanity, right? I don't know if there's a better way you could say that, Julie.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm hoping soon I can make an announcement about pre-orders for the second book, which is The Confluence of Gaia, Plant Medicine, and the Human Soul. Working on that.
Very, very, very excited.
For sure.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Julie. And thank you, Rose. And we'll hopefully have part 2 up and out for you all very soon.
Thank you so much, Crystal and Matthew.
Thank you, Julie.
Thank you, Julie. And thank you, Rose.